Today we reveal 10 Israel-Palestine facts that will shock you. If you're ready to learn some shocking facts about the Israeli-Palestinian war and conflict, let's get started. Number 10. International involvement. The international community has played a role in trying to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for many years. The United Nations, the United States, and the European Union have all been involved in mediating peace initiatives and resolutions. The UN has been involved in the conflict since its inception. In 1947, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution to partition Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab. The Jewish community accepted the resolution, but the Arab community rejected it. This led to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, which resulted in the establishment of the State of Israel. Since then, the UN has passed numerous resolutions on the conflict, calling for a two-state solution, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. However, none of these resolutions have been implemented. The United States has also been a major player in the conflict. The U.S. has been a strong supporter of Israel, providing it with billions of dollars in military and economic aid each year. The U.S. has also played a role in mediating peace initiatives, such as the Oslo Accords of the 1990s. However, the U.S. has been criticized for its bias towards Israel, and its efforts to resolve the conflict have so far been unsuccessful. The European Union is another major international player in the conflict. The EU is a major donor of aid to both Israel and the Palestinians. It has also played a role in mediating peace initiatives. However, the EU has been divided on its approach to the conflict, with some member states being more supportive of Israel and others being more supportive of the Palestinians. Despite the efforts of the international community, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains unresolved. The two sides remain deeply divided on key issues, such as the borders of a future Palestinian state, the status of Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Number 9. Peace efforts. The conflict is essentially over land and who has the right to live on it. Israel was founded in 1948 on land that had been inhabited by Palestinians for centuries. The Palestinians were displaced from their homes during the war that led to the creation of Israel, and many of them still live in refugee camps today. There have been numerous peace efforts over the years, but none of them have been successful in resolving the conflict. The most recent major peace effort was the Oslo Accords, which were signed in 1993. The Oslo Accords created a Palestinian Authority, which was supposed to govern the West Bank and Gaza Strip. However, the Oslo Accords were never fully implemented, and the Palestinian Authority has not been able to achieve full independence. In 2000, the Camp David Summit was held in an attempt to reach a final peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. However, the summit failed, and the conflict has continued ever since. In 2007, the Annapolis Conference was held in an attempt to revive the peace process. However, the conference did not produce any concrete results, and the peace process has remained largely stalled since then. There are a number of reasons why the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been so difficult to resolve. One reason is that the two sides have very different historical narratives. The Israelis believe that they have a right to the land of Israel because it is the historical homeland of the Jewish people. The Palestinians believe that they have a right to the land of Palestine because it is their homeland and they have been living there for centuries. Another reason why the conflict has been so difficult to resolve is that the two sides have very different goals. The Israelis want to maintain their security and their right to self-determination. The Palestinians want to achieve full independence and sovereignty. Number 8. Gaza Blockade. The Gaza Strip is a small piece of land along the Mediterranean Sea, bordered by Israel and Egypt. It is home to around 2 million people, most of whom are Palestinian. The Gaza Strip has been under Israeli blockade since 2007, after the Palestinian group Hamas took control of the territory. The blockade has had a devastating impact on the people of Gaza. It has made it difficult for them to get food, medicine, and other essential goods. It has also made it difficult for people to travel and to find work. The blockade has led to a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. There are several reasons why Israel imposed the blockade. Israel says the blockade is necessary to prevent Hamas from smuggling weapons into Gaza. Hamas is a militant group that Israel considers to be a terrorist organization. Israel also says the blockade is necessary to protect its own citizens from rocket attacks from Gaza. However, the blockade has been criticized by many human rights groups. They say the blockade is illegal and that it is causing unnecessary suffering to the people of Gaza. They also say that the blockade is not effective in preventing Hamas from smuggling weapons into Gaza. The blockade has also led to periodic military conflicts between Israel and Hamas. In 2008 to 2009, Israel launched a military operation in Gaza that killed over 1,400 Palestinians. In 2012, there was another military conflict between Israel and Hamas that killed over 170 Palestinians. In 2014, there was another major military conflict between Israel and Hamas that killed over 2,200 Palestinians. The Gaza Strip is a complex and troubled place. The blockade has made the situation even worse. The people of Gaza deserve to live in peace and dignity. The blockade needs to be lifted so that the people of Gaza can rebuild their lives. Number 7. Security barrier. One of the most controversial aspects of the conflict is the security barrier that Israel constructed in the early 2000s. The barrier is often referred to as the West Bank barrier or the apartheid wall by critics. The Israeli government claims that the barrier is necessary to deter terrorism, but Palestinians see it as a land grab. The barrier is a series of concrete walls, fences, and electronic surveillance systems that runs along the Green Line, the border between Israel and the West Bank. The barrier is approximately 700 kilometers long and up to 9 meters high. It has been criticized for its impact on Palestinian communities, as it has divided families and made it difficult for people to travel to work or school. The Israeli government argues that the barrier is necessary to protect its citizens from terrorism. The Second Intifada, which began in 2000, saw a wave of suicide bombings and other attacks against Israeli civilians. The Israeli government claims that the barrier has helped to reduce the number of attacks. Palestinians argue that the barrier is a land grab and a violation of their human rights. They point out that the barrier cuts through Palestinian land and separates families and communities. The barrier also makes it difficult for Palestinians to access their farmland and water resources. The International Court of Justice ruled in 2004 that the barrier was illegal and that Israel should dismantle it. However, Israel has refused to comply with the ruling. Number 6. Two-state solution. The two-state solution is a proposed framework for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by establishing two states for two peoples, Israel for the Jewish people and Palestine for the Palestinian people. This solution is based on the idea that the two peoples have the right to self-determination and that they can live in peace and security side by side. The two-state solution has been the preferred approach of the international community for many years. It was first endorsed by the United Nations in 1947, and it has been the basis of numerous peace negotiations since then. However, the two sides have never been able to agree on a final peace agreement, and the conflict remains unresolved. There are a number of challenges that stand in the way of a two-state solution. One of the biggest challenges is the issue of borders. The two sides have different views on where the border between Israel and Palestine should be. Israel wants to keep most of the land that it currently controls, including the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The Palestinians, on the other hand, want to establish a state in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, with East Jerusalem as its capital. Another challenge is the issue of refugees. There are millions of Palestinian refugees who were displaced from their homes during the conflict. The Palestinians want the right of return for these refugees, but Israel is opposed to this. Finally, there is the issue of security. Both sides are concerned about their security in a two-state solution. Israel wants to ensure that it will be able to defend itself from Palestinian attacks, while the Palestinians want to ensure that they will not be subject to Israeli occupation. Number 5. Palestinian refugees. There are millions of Palestinian refugees around the world, many of whom are descendants of those who were displaced during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The right of return for these refugees is a key Palestinian demand. In 1948, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled their homes as a result of the war. They were driven out by Israeli forces or left fearing for their safety. The United Nations estimated that 700,000 Palestinians had fled their homes by the end of the war. The Palestinian refugees have never been allowed to return to their homes. They have been living in camps in the Palestinian territories, neighboring Arab countries, and other parts of the world. The living conditions in the camps are often difficult, with limited access to food, water, and health care. The Palestinian refugee crisis is one of the longest-standing refugee crises in the world. It has had a devastating impact on the lives of millions of people. The refugees have lost their homes, their livelihoods, and their sense of identity. The right of return is a key Palestinian demand. The Palestinians believe that they have the right to return to the homes that they were forced to leave in 1948. They argue that this is a fundamental human right. Israel has rejected the Palestinian demand for a right of return. The Israeli government argues that a right of return would be a demographic threat to Israel. They also argue that it is not possible to resettle millions of people in Israel. The Palestinian refugee crisis is a complex issue with no easy solutions. It is a major obstacle to peace in the Middle East. Number 4. Settlements. The legality of Israeli settlements in the West Bank is a complex and controversial issue. The international community largely considers them illegal under international law, but Israel maintains that they are legal under certain circumstances. The West Bank is a territory that was captured by Israel from Jordan in the 1967 Six-Day War. According to the Fourth Geneva Convention, which Israel is a party to, an occupying power is prohibited from transferring its own civilian population into the territory it occupies. Israel has argued that the Geneva Conventions do not apply to the West Bank because it is not a sovereign state. Israel also claims that the West Bank was never legally part of Jordan, and that therefore it is not bound by the Fourth Geneva Convention. The United Nations Security Council has passed several resolutions condemning Israeli settlements in the West Bank. In 2016, the Security Council passed Resolution 2334, which stated that the settlements were a flagrant violation under international law and a major obstacle to the achievement of the two-state solution. The United States has traditionally vetoed Security Council resolutions condemning Israeli settlements. However, in 2016, the Obama administration abstained from voting on Resolution 2334, which allowed it to pass. Israel has argued that the settlements are necessary for its security and that they do not prevent the achievement of a two-state solution. The Palestinians argue that the settlements are illegal and that they make it impossible for them to have a viable state. The debate over the legality of Israeli settlements in the West Bank is likely to continue for many years to come. Number 3. Occupied territories. Israel has occupied the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, since the 1967 Six-Day War. This means that Israel has control over these areas, even though they are not officially part of Israel. The occupation has been a major source of tension between Israelis and Palestinians, and it has led to violence and instability in the region. There are many reasons why Israel has occupied the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. One reason is that Israel wants to protect its security. These territories are located on Israel's borders, and Israel believes that they could be used by hostile countries to attack Israel. Another reason for the occupation is that Israel wants to control the holy sites in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a holy city to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Israel controls the Western Wall, which is a holy site for Jews, and it has also built settlements in East Jerusalem, which is a holy city for Christians and Muslims. The Palestinians want to establish their own independent state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, with East Jerusalem as the capital. However, Israel has refused to withdraw from these territories, and it has built settlements in the West Bank, which makes it more difficult for the Palestinians to establish their own state. The occupation has had a devastating impact on the Palestinians. The Palestinians have limited freedom of movement, and they often have to go through checkpoints to get around. The Palestinians also have limited access to water and land, and they are often subject to violence from Israeli settlers. The occupation has also been harmful to Israel. The occupation has led to international isolation, and it has also cost Israel a lot of money. The occupation has also made it difficult for Israel to achieve peace with the Palestinians. There have been many attempts to resolve the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, but none of them have been successful. The most recent attempt was the Oslo Accords, which were signed in the 1990s. The Oslo Accords were supposed to lead to the establishment of a Palestinian state, but they were never fully implemented. Number 2. Israeli independence. In 1948, Israel declared its independence. This led to a war with neighboring Arab states and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. The war ended with Israel in control of most of the territory that had been allocated to it by the United Nations, as well as some territory that had been allocated to the Palestinian Arabs. Since then, the two sides have been locked in a conflict over the status of the Palestinian territories. The Palestinians want to establish an independent state in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. Israel claims that all of this territory is part of its homeland and refuses to allow the Palestinians to establish a sovereign state. The conflict has been marked by violence on both sides. There have been numerous wars, uprisings, and terrorist attacks. Thousands of people have been killed and injured. One of the key issues in the conflict is the status of Jerusalem. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim the city as their capital. Jerusalem is a holy city to three religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It is home to important religious sites for all three faiths. Another key issue is the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced from their homes during the 1948 war. The Palestinians want to be allowed to return to their homes, but Israel refuses to allow them to do so. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the most intractable conflicts in the world. Both sides have legitimate claims, and neither side is willing to give up on its core demands. Number 1. Historical conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a long-running conflict involving mostly Israelis and Palestinians that began in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The conflict is rooted in rival claims to the Holy Land, considered a holy place by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In 1897, the World Zionist Organization was founded in Basel, Switzerland, with the aim of establishing a Jewish homeland in Palestine. At that time, the majority of the Palestinian population was Arab and Muslim. The Zionist movement began purchasing land from Arab landowners in Palestine, and Jewish immigrants began to settle in the region. In 1917, during World War I, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, supporting the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. After the war, the British Empire was given control of Palestine under the League of Nations Mandate for Palestine. The British ruled Palestine until 1948. During this time, the Jewish population in Palestine increased significantly. In 1947, the United Nations, UN, voted to divide Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab. While the Jewish community accepted the partition plan, the Arab community rejected it. In 1948, the British withdrew from Palestine and the State of Israel was declared. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Since 1948, there have been a number of wars and conflicts between Israel and its Arab neighbors, including the 1967 Six-Day War, the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the 1982 Lebanon War, and ongoing Palestinian intifadas, uprisings. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues today. There are many different perspectives on the conflict, and there is no easy solution. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel. If you have suggestions for future videos, be sure to leave them in the comments below.